All right, now we're joined by the head coach of Stanford men's water polo, headed into season 4. Brian Flacks is here. Brian, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Before we jump into this season, and I know it's underway, you guys are already off to a 1-0 start as we're talking here. I want to just reflect back on last year. I know it was a goal to get back into the NCAAs and make the postseason a regular thing like it has been in the history of Stanford. How important, even though you didn't win the ultimate title last year, how important was the progress that the program made last year, in your opinion?
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, the last time we'd been to the tournament was 2019, where that was the Ben Halleck, Dylan Woodhead era where we won an NCAA championship. And so, the group of freshmen that I inherited at that time had never been to an NCAA tournament. And so they really built kind of that program and put it back in a place, I think, and left it in a place where hopefully it's something that we do every year now at Stanford. It's kind of the ultimate goal is you want to be at that tournament and put yourself in contention for an NCAA championship. And it was special for me. I came in with this group of kind of young sophomores, Riley Pittman, Soren Jensen, Ethan Parrish, and Jackson Painter, grew and Nolan Kurdog, who had to unfortunately medically retire. Don't want to leave him out, but and they built this program and every year chipped away. I think the first year we started with them, my first year, we didn't beat a single team in the NPSF. The second year we went 2-2 in the conference, as we had 3-3 in the conference, or 2-3 in the conference, and this year finished 4-2 in the conference and got our way back in the tournament and in contention, and thought we gave UCLA a great game, and hopefully we're back there in a few months.
Yeah, you mentioned those guys, and I know talking with you over the years, that was a point of pride, that guys that didn't have to come back and play another year, but they really believed in what was happening, and they became names so synonymous with college water polo, as you mentioned, Painter, Pittman, that crew. Now it's a very different team, some key returners. How do you go about replacing all of that depth?
Yeah, it's nearly impossible. So our team, it was interesting. So we obviously, really proud of those guys for coming back, first and foremost. You mentioned that. And at Stanford, it's this unique thing where it's an extra quarter of school, but they often have these amazing opportunities, these job offers, or all these other things that they can go on to do if water polo isn't in their foreseeable future. And so keeping them around for their fifth year has been sort of a challenge over the last 20 years. So having all the guys decide to come back and committed to putting the team back into getting back to the tournament and hopefully competing for a national championship was really cool. But another kind of dynamic that was cool about last year was we were the only team in the NPSF that played 4 true freshmen. So we had 6 freshmen come in with me last year. 5 of them just were at Junior Worlds, and three Americans that got the silver medal. And so we had this young, really good core of freshmen that came in and contributed last year. And so hopefully those fifth years pass along some important values and experiences, and that group is ready to carry the torch this year.
Yeah, and you hit on a couple of the guys that have gotten great experiences over the summer. Even with the loss of depth, you have so many guys that got to compete at a high level with Team USA. You think about Ol or Zelikov, or just the list goes on, or even with other international countries with their national teams. How valuable are those experiences? You've been involved in the pipeline. How critical are those to taking that next step forward for athletes?
Yeah. Can't stress enough how important that is. One of the main differences from coming from a high school or a club program is that, the athletes are playing, if you're a high school coach, all off season. They're playing in club games. They have the Junior Olympics. They have all of these tournaments, and then they come into their high school season, and so they're competing all the time. When you get to college, you don't have that. You actually kind of lose all those opportunities. You get 4 games in the off season that you get to compete in. You can set up scrimmages and things as a club program over the summer. But ultimately, it comes down to 25 games during a season, and every game is must win. And so getting guys to go overseas, have the experiences at Junior Worlds, at World Championships, playing on at the highest level on the biggest stage, it's just a good opportunity to get them that type of experience of playing under pressure and ready to play in the college season. So I think it's invaluable, and hopefully we continue to have guys that represent their countries and go play on the world's biggest stage.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's almost counterintuitive, right? You wouldn't think you would lose games, right? But when you're in that younger age group, you can be playing in pretty competitive water polo year round. I was going to ask it later, but since you brought it up, the transition from high school coach to college coach, and it's interesting, your predecessor, John Vargas, did the same thing. I remember, although asking him about that, and he said, well, Greg, by the way, I was the Olympic coach. I said, I know, but I was asking about the transition from high school to college. What is that now in season 4? What was the biggest adjustment for you for those different levels, and kind of how have you grown in that over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I get that question all the time. And similar to John, I had a lot of experiences with older Black, was the World University Games coach in 2019. I was with the senior national team before, so had some experience with older players. And there are definitely some differences. You know, the recruiting is different. And the most obvious is the thing I actually just talked about, which is, you know, our entire year comes down to these 25 games, but every game is must win, every single one. I don't think people understand how just challenging that is being in our conference, and our conference is generally the most competitive and has top teams. And so you get you get the automatic bid, and then 2 at-large bids that you're trying to put yourself in the best possible position for the tournament. And how every weekend it feels like is a must-win game is different. And trying to manage load over 3 months and trying to make sure that we're ready to go and prepared for each weekend. And build at the same time, because you want to perform your best in December. So I think that's probably been the most challenging and the biggest learning curve for me, at least.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how similar, and you probably not make this connection a lot, but college water polo and college football are similar in some ways in that you can't take a bad loss. It's gotten a little bit different. Football's expanded their playoff and that sort of thing. And the men's water polo tourney has grown a little bit, but you just can't afford to drop a game, right, to a team that's maybe outside of that very top ranking, or you might find yourself on the outside at the end of September.
You know, James Graham's a good friend of mine. He was the World University Games coach in 2019. And we joke about this often, but every year that at-large bid spot comes down to the very last weekend in college. Every single year. And you can look back on the seasons. Every year I've been here, it's been one single game and generally one goal over those 30 games that have made the difference of you getting in the tournament or not getting in the tournament. Even this past year, Amazing team, one of the best records we've had in 25 years. And this is now playing double round robin in the MPSF conference tournament. And up until the day of the selection, we didn't know if we were going. Obviously, and then a fantastic team in UOP that didn't make it. But I can't understand how impressive these kids are, that like getting up for every single weekend, just like the college football season, but doubling those games, playing nearly 30 games and being great over 30 games, and how difficult that is.
Yeah, that was a nail biter at the end of last year, right? I know Pacific felt like they had put a pretty, as you know, James, right? He had the numbers crunched and put forward a very compelling argument about why they should have been an at-large pick. It's good for the sport to have that level of debate, but it does make the calendaring and the scheduling difficult. I do know that they have now secured, I believe, all the teams that they didn't play last year. Pacific will get a chance this year. I know Fordham's going to play a lot of the big teams as well. From a depth parity standpoint, how good is it? You obviously want to win your games, but as someone who cares about the health of the sport, how good is it to have other teams that can be just as competitive as the quote-unquote Big Four?
Yeah, we're in this really interesting time in college sports. I mean, I know everyone keeps saying it, but you have transfer portal, you have NIL, and then most recently the NC2A settlement that now allows for the scholarship limit to change amongst teams. And so we're going to see, as I mentioned last year, the most competitive year in college history was last season, and that is only going to increase every single year. The competitive equity across our sport is going to be phenomenal, and it is going to make it so much harder. I'm a huge proponent of, one of the things I love that every game in the men's season matters. I'm a big proponent of adding teams to the NC2A tournament. I think it's a great opportunity for us to showcase our sport. But in the meantime, with the kind of the rising tide, we're going to get some great water polo games, and it's going to make it really, really fun for the fans.
Just switching gears a bit, and I know it's something that's probably tough to talk about, but your team in the news in the offseason, and not for reasons that any program wants to be written about, but allegations against you and the program. What can you tell us about that and where things stand now?
Yeah, I can't unfortunately share much. I can tell you that there were allegations made against myself, the program, and the coaches. We underwent two separate third-party investigations. Those investigations have concluded, and myself, the coaches, and the program were cleared of those allegations. It's been hard. It's been challenging and difficult, and I'm definitely as someone that values their relationships with their players, sad that there were these families that didn't necessarily have the experiences they wanted at Stanford. At the same time, we've had some unexpected results from that. I feel more confident than ever in what we're building here at Stanford, and more excited about the team that we have. There's been this portrayal of what's going on up at Stanford, of this chaos and craziness that on the ground floor is not something that I think that we're feeling. And I kind of caution anyone to believe everything that they read. But it's really been almost unifying for our team. It's obviously created some adversity, which is always can be unifying. But it's also really excited our alumni base and engaged alumni and recruiting. One of the cool things through this process has been, we didn't lose a single recruit in 2025. All 6 of the athletes that committed to Stanford, that had signed at Stanford, came to Stanford. And then 2026, we're seeing, I think, some of the best players in the world have committed to Stanford already to play for 2026. And it's almost like galvanized the recruiting process a bit. People wanted to be a part of Stanford. And so challenging and hard, but also really strengthened my resolve and my belief in the program and what we're building.
Yeah, and that note on the recruiting, obviously telling that that those folks wanted to honor their commitment to the program. One thing that came out of this as well, you had some of your former players, some Stanford alum, really come out in support of you and the program. You talk about kind of those silver linings from a tough situation. How did that make you feel when you see people just stand up and kind of offer their support?
Yeah, without probably getting emotional. I've been a part of water polo now for 30 years. I started with playing when I was 7 years old, and like anyone that's a part of this community realizes how special it is, like how passionate and special. And I've developed just some of the coolest relationships with both teammates and then the families and players that I've gotten to coach, and it's definitely why I do it. And so having, there's kind of like 2 sides. One, the families that came out publicly and spoke on my behalf and stuck up when I couldn't speak because I was under investigation, but were there supporting me, and Ben and Dylan writing an op-ed piece, and Hannah Parrish, and then, Reinl and Riley Pittman and all these players that came out. Just to support me was really special. But the other side that people didn't get to see were like the hundreds of text messages and emails and phone calls or hugs on the pool deck that I was getting from my players. My wife was getting. It just made it really special. And again, it makes you realize how special this water polo community is and how amazing it is. And they've really helped me and helped my wife get through this.
And I guess just the last question on this, and you kind of talked about how it has kind of galvanized the program and that, there's been these investigations and it's closed. So is it now just time to move on? What's kind of next? Are you waiting on anything more on this, or is it just back to water polo? How do you move forward?
Yeah, we're fully focused on winning a national championship in December, and that means beating Davis on Saturday. So that is we're full go. We're this is behind us, and we're ready to continue building and hopefully putting ourselves in contention for a championship in December at home.
Yeah, we're talking with Brian Flacks, head coach of Stanford here. This is just leading into the second weekend of play in this 25 season. You brought up the NCAA championship. You were at home for the good stuff here, the MPSF tourney and the NCAA championship. I think some coaches would say that's awesome. Others would say, oh, man, it's a lot of pressure. Where do you land on being able to host 2 of the biggest events of the year?
This is the best outdoor aquatic facility in the world. Like, there's no better place than to host NCAA championships at Stanford University. I believe that. And so no added pressure, just added excitement, honestly, because there's, you were there last year. There was like an hour wait to get into our game, our semifinal for UCLA versus Stanford last year. What a cool thing for our sport. There's no better venue to watch and see the game. So more than anything, excited for the sport to have it here again.
But is there any pressure to say we got to be in this because it's in our house?
Yeah, I don't think that there's we're all competitive. I mean, I came to Stanford to be the best. We want to have, and so the only pressure is, I guess it's self-inflicted where we want to put ourselves there, but no added pressure. Just like I said, I think more than anything, those are some of the coolest opportunities, playing in front of your home crowd, an NCAA tournament. We got to do that last year, and hopefully we're back there again this year.
Let's talk a bit about this year's team. We kind of alluded to a few of the guys going through preseason, and you had the first match of the year already. Who are some guys that you feel like have taken a step forward from when you saw them last wearing the Stanford cap?
Yeah, there's a bunch. So we think of the old guys that are returning. We have Wes Temkin in the cage, who again was with the senior national team training this summer, who was a second team All-American last year. So always feel really confident with him in the net. Gavin West is back. And then Alex Georgie are kind of like our old senior leaders, and CJ Indart as well as a center defender. And then there's been this influx of young kids, and we mentioned the experience they've gotten internationally, but we had 5 of our 6 freshmen go overseas and play this summer in Junior Worlds. Again, 3 of those that were Americans that got the silver medal, which were Ryan Ohl, Will Schneider, and Max Elikoff. Really excited about their growth and development and the experience that they got. Max in particular, kind of the growth that he's made. He's a kid from Florida that's just kind of jumped onto the scene and played some really important minutes for the American team. Botan Balo, who was on the Hungarian team, who finished 4th place, was over there. Orestes Urvadakis. And then Ben Four, who's also, true freshman that played last year, who's coming into his sophomore year. So excited about him. We've added some freshmen too, Ben Orlemans, Colin Karras, 2 guys that are going to come in and play important minutes for us. So, I think that they've again, we have a really nice mixture of some guys that are returning with this experience, and then some really, really young guys that got this great experience and have grown a lot since from year 1 to year 2. So I thought we played really well in weekend 1, and hopefully we continue to build off that the rest of the way.
You mentioned one of the returners, Alex Georgie. His journey is interesting. I know we've talked about him in the past, and just the work he's kind of put in to get in better shape. Just tell us a bit from your perspective, kind of the path he's been on. I know playing with his national team as well, and just kind of the efforts taken to be more of a force in college water polo, hopefully for you guys this season.
Yeah, Alex is, you have those, over your coaching career, you have, those 10, 15 players that have completely shocked you, surprised you, made complete 180s. And Alex at one point was roughly 360 pounds coming back from winter break. He now plays at about 285 pounds. Wow. That is purely hard work, effort to, the college game also is just how dynamic it is. And so playing at a lower weight to be able to move and move more quickly. But he's done that in about a year and a half. It's been a really, really kind of amazing journey. And then watching him, he was always involved in the Romanian national team system, but then getting invited back this summer, going to compete at world championships and play on the biggest stage and play an important, meaningful role for that team. It's been pretty special for me to watch. And so really, really proud of him, and think he's going to be a force this year for us.
I've used it in a couple of broadcasts. I'm trying to get the nickname Curious Georgie to stick. I don't know if that's getting any traction at Stanford.
We call him Big Al. Okay. So Big Al so that's how I know him. But Curious Georgie's great. And that might.
Okay, I'll keep trying to weave that in. You talked about the freshmen. You talk about the returners. I always like to ask this question. If you kind of picture the perfect Stanford water polo game, you're kind of describing it like, kind of close your eyes and think about that. What does that look like to someone that maybe hasn't seen this year's team play?
Yeah, I mean, if I think that the biggest area of growth that we made as a program last year was we gave up fewer goals than any team in the United States last year per game, and so. I'm definitely more of a defensive-minded coach in terms of the way we play defense, how tough we are on defense, how disciplined we are on defense, and then the way we play 5-on-6. So the way we play when we lose a player, and so we're going to be, I think, hopefully thoughtful and controlled offensively, and really disciplined in the way that we play, but also, I think that a lot of people think that I am like this, very structured and discipline. And there's part of me that's that, but also we love to have creativity and be dynamic and change and innovate. And I think you have to do that based off of your roster and the players that you get and their strengths. And so This year specifically, we have two great centers. I mean, we have Will Schneider, who I think was one of the best centers in the world at Junior Worlds, and as we just talked about, Alex Georgie. So we'll play really a center-centric offense, I think, with some phenomenal shooters around, which are going to be hopefully balanced and thoughtful and controlled offensively, and control the center position. And then defensively, again, hopefully we're doing a great job of forcing difficult shots and keeping the ball away from our net. And if they are shooting it, and hopefully they're shooting in front of a lot of blocks and against a world-class goalie, Wes Temkin.
We've talked about a lot of turnover with guys moving on, newcomers. Who's that voice or voices in the water that the guys will listen to, kind of your leader in the pool?
Yeah, I should have mentioned this, but we also picked up a senior transfer, or graduate transfer with Jean-Pierre Dimontier, who was a UCLA player, transferred in, and he's just had an unbelievable experience. Was with UCLA during a whole bunch of NC2A tournament runs, so he has that kind of NC2A experience. Was a national team player for Italy, phenomenal player. But we bring back, like, we brought him, and we have Alex, and we have CJ and Gavin West, like this kind of old group of guys that I think have been around me for a while, been around the program, and understand. They're kind of like they keep us level, they keep us controlled, and they're the voice of reason, I think, when we play. So I think we'll lean on those guys mostly.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up Dimontier. What a huge addition for your team, and just a guy that can make something happen, right? I think it's hard to find those guys, right, that are just experienced and veterans, and coming from the Bruins has played at the highest level. Sounds like he'll be a welcome addition. Yes,
huge addition. Both, like, as a player, phenomenal player. But if you ever get to know Jean-Pierre, one of the nicest, hardest working young men I've gotten to know, and so he will fill a huge void for us. We graduated Riley Pittman, Jackson Painter on the right side of the pool last year. So I mean, our offensive production was really relied on those two guys for 3 consecutive years, and so losing them was a big blow. But plugging in someone of Jean-Pierre's abilities right away, and someone who can play significant minutes for us on the right side of the pool was huge.
Yeah, he played a lot of club ball, I believe, with New York Athletic Club this past year as well. I talked to Chris Whiteleg months ago. I don't know if you heard the story that his brother Massimo and Jean-Pierre, it's the same names from the old movie Kicking and Screaming with Will Ferrell. And so they have this whole running joke about these guys having the same names from that movie.
I did not know. Great movie.
He went deep in the movie archives. Last one for you, and again, I appreciate you taking the time, just because we have it in common. Being a dad of a young kid, how's that changed kind of your perspective on everything that you do? Obviously it's like a life changer, even if you weren't a coach, but how does it bleed into what you do here in water polo?
Yeah, well, I'd be curious your answer, honestly, on that too, because So
I mean, I'll tell you, it kind of sets everything down a level, right? Like, all your stuff that you're passionate about is still super important, but it does, I don't know how you feel, but it does, like, take the sting out of certain things, because you're like, I still have this thing that's so much more important and is amazing, and it just puts it all in perspective. Like, things are still important, but they're not. It's just different. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think it provides a super healthy balance to your life. We can get so, like, laser focused on the goal or the task or whatever, and I think it's done a nice job of just opening up your world to so many more things and making it, like, fuller and richer.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably pretty spot on. I think it's way harder than I expected, but so rewarding. And I have a little girl, and so there is nothing better than coming home to her at the end of the day, or having her in the stands and seeing her after a game. And I think you put it best in terms of just kind of level setting what's important in life. And I have another one on the way. So I have one due roughly 4 weeks from now, a little boy coming the day before we play Cal. So that will throw another little interesting wrench into the season, but really excited. And it's definitely the best thing that I've ever done. Yeah.
The good news is, like, they don't care about the exclusion ratio, so they're not bummed about your 6-on-5 percentage,
You play 5-on-6 or how your defense was that day. No, she does not care at all.
Yeah. Brian Flacks, thanks for taking the time, and good luck this season with the card.
Right. Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me.